What's going on, everybody? Wilson here, your spiritual hype man. Super happy to be back again. I hope you've enjoyed the last couple of episodes with our special guest. Looking to have some more special guests coming up soon. But again, hopefully you're having a great day. And remember, if you're not, it's just the thoughts in our head. We have to really just learn how to shut them off. Shut them off. Either prompt yourself with different questions or biohack and go do something physical. And some days are easier than others, right? Some days can be easier than others when it comes to actually changing those feelings and changing the feeling and vibe and frequency. So that being said, there's a couple things I want to touch base on, things that have happened. One of them that comes to mind right away is actually needing to take time to actually just sit quietly, right? So again, and this is, I don't know if it's for everybody or, because sometimes I hear if you haven't listened to like Alex Hormozy, he's an awesome, individual, human being, great story too, great come up story, does wonderful things for business. But like one of his things is like, yo, I'm up and I go. Like I'm just up and I go. I don't do any morning routines. I don't do any of that. And he's just strictly about like crushing work. Like he loves, his passion is just, I'm going to work. I'm going to build this thing. This is amazing. So much so that when he works, works like in a closet space with very minimal distractions around him to just get shit done, which is, again, crazy cool and amazing because he's obviously built a great enterprise, probably, has a shit ton of money. It seems like has a good relationship with his wife who also does the same thing. So they're on the same level, right? Like they're on the same level. But again, everybody's different. So, not everybody has the same mentality. And I think, side note, I'll touch base on this again, hopefully, if not, remind me. We have to understand that, right? Like, I think prospectively is to understand that, like, everyone's got their own, like, to something, right? Or their own position on something, or their own favorite color or favorite sports team or thoughts on political, religion, fill in the blank, right? Everyone's got their own take, and it comes from somewhere. It comes from the influence, comes from our thoughts. It comes from, the emotion that we get to it, whatever's connected to us for however many years. And so I try to stay on more the neutral side of a lot of these things, whether it's, again, religion, sports, politics, gender stuff, like all this stuff that is out there now, and that people are either I don't want to say far left, far right, like whatever. They're on one side or one, on the other side, or, and there's different degrees, right? So, side note, I think it's one understanding that, and then at least having the respect for the other person if that's what they like, support, feel strongly about, and be okay, like, right, be okay with it as long as it's not hurting you or hurting the people around you in some sort of way. What's the, to me, I like to stay very neutral because, like, I'm loving and accepting of all people. I just, my only thing is to ensure that, like, people aren't getting hurt, right? Like, and of course there's questions, and I've talked about this before in terms of how young can you, to be influenced or exposed to certain topics, whether it is religion, whether it is, politics, whether it is gender stuff, whether it is fill in the blank, like how early, is the right mind developed in a human being to, like, start providing or showing some of these influences are the questions that I would question, right? I don't have the answers, but I think that's something where you can start and you really figure out developmental wise, when is the right time to, present these options or these other things out there. And again, technology has caused that to be, one, really quick information at your fingertips, and then two, because of not, like, I would say our generation, or a generation before us, and then in front of us, like, not knowing that technology was going to take this fucking amazing fast leap, and how quickly things can be shown at your fingertips with all these different apps from all over the world. It's like, and potentially I've seen it growing up, like, these last couple of years, where it's like, you fucking give your kids a tablet and tell them to shh because we're doing something, So I think it's a cycle of all these things that we didn't foresee technology affecting in a way that has resulted in some of these things, and then also become very super polarity, like have a big polarity of things because, I don't know. It's just it's our human nature to like telenovelas, which is Spanish. What are they? Soap operas. Like we like the conflict. I think for some reason, and I think it's just ingrained in us for so many years. And so at the end of the day, the side note turned into somewhat of a main note. I think it's considering and just having this like open, like the awareness that like, listen, man, everyone's entitled to their feeling or their support or whatever. But, I don't think it's necessary to be upset or get super riled up unless the person is, somehow directly affecting you in a negative way, and I think there should be more conversation and openness to being able to have a conversation, especially if you're feeling some sort of way, and then you think you're feeling some sort of way because this person said something or did something, and then like that person could completely not even be thinking of that, except you're thinking about it. And I've done that, I used to do it a lot. Like I used to be very in my own head about what does this person think? Did I do the right thing? Not, like. And then I'm thinking about it all day, and then like when I go to say something or approach the person, they're like, "Bro, I didn't even I forgot about it, or I haven't even been thinking about that at all." Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, great, I just not wasted, but like I spent all this extra energy like keeping you in the back of my brain thinking X, Y, Z. So, at the end of the day, it's like everyone's got their perspective, everyone's got their their thing they like, their team they root for, their cup of tea, their cup of Joe, like whatever. As long as it's not hurting you and you can have open conversation if you need to, if you want to say something, just do it, do it or just don't to take it so personal. You know what I mean? Like I don't take things too personal either. Unless, again, there's a line of disrespect. And I think that's the key. It's like if you were me and I were you, would I have crossed that line? So I'm going to get to taking a break and sitting in silence in a moment, I promise. But all these things keep coming to me. So we just finished up a workshop, which is awesome. We were able to hang out with some homies that were interested in just learning our system in terms of creating content and then being able to become a little more efficient in terms of like the social media game and posting all that stuff. It worked out really well. One of the things that happened during the event though, the TVs, there's like TVs in there. It's a nice space, but there's still working through like the technology aspect, which is it was a little cumbersome. And then for some of the parts that I had anticipated to use like the phone and then connect it to the phone wirelessly and then like edit live on the phone so I can show, the participants how to edit on their phone or just some things. The TV didn't work. Right. And we went there the day before, probably should have gone there a couple days earlier, but we went the day before. And I'm over here complaining about not being able to connect my AirPlay to one of the TVs. But here's the situation that happened, and I think it works. It comes from like the last thing I said, right? It's the perspective thing or things that we've talked about in terms of like understanding and providing a situation for someone else to understand your perspective. And here's what happened. So I had tried it. I called the young lady that was helping us set up, and I was like, hey, the TVs don't work. And it was really just kind of like, oh yeah, the TVs don't work, and we don't, it worked yesterday, and then back and forth, just kind of like not really trying to find a solution, but just comforting the solution that like there is a solution, but we don't know, or else I'd have to like send an email to like my head of the boss people, internet technology or some shit. And so like I was beginning to get like a little frustrated just based on like, I don't know, for lack of better vocabulary words, customer service, but really just the interaction and what I was getting from the individual in the situation, right? And so I felt myself getting upset, but I was like, all right, let me just take a fucking chill pill. And I understand it's not, like I don't know if it's part of her job description to know this. Maybe it's not. I'm trying to understand the individual. I'm trying to understand the perspective. I'm trying to understand the situation. So all I said, I was like, hey, young lady, if she's like, because the question was like, well, I don't know, what you want me to do. And I said, well, let me ask you a question, young lady. It's like, if you were me and I were you in this situation, what would you want out of this situation? And then she went back into like, oh yeah, but I don't, da da da. I was like, no, wait. Like, I'm just asking you in this situation, if you can put yourself in my situation and I'll put myself in yours, what would you want out of this situation based on what's happening? And she took a minute. She did it mentally. I can see her eyes rolling, like not rolling back like this guy, more like, let me actually process this information. And her answer was simply, yeah, I would definitely want, some sort of solution or fix. I was like, great. Okay. What's the next step? Like, how do we get to that? And then she's like, well, let me see if I can email so-and-so and see if they can come in either today or tomorrow before the event. That was awesome, right? It worked out well. The situation worked out well. I didn't say anything because sometimes when I get upset, like I'll say the right thing, like in terms of like what I believe is right in the situation, which again, I push it against, or I compare it against like, hey, is this logically the best thing that should happen right now, right? And sometimes I get upset and I said in a way that like it can be very directive, and I don't want to say aggressive, but it can definitely cut through, the emotion if we're not careful, if I'm not careful. But it worked out well, right? So it was a good example of, again, understanding someone else's perspective, providing the ability to like simply say it in a way that the other person can understand it, and give them the time they need, even if you have to like readdress and remind them to actually perceive the other person's perspective, in this case, my perspective. And so the solution was the email. We came in the next day. I saw her. I said, hey, did anybody come in with the TV or whatever? She said, no, they didn't come in, and I don't know if he's coming in today. So solution wasn't fixed. Like, they didn't fix the problem. But again, that situation of how to speak to the other person and how to actually have someone understand your perspective, and then actually figure out like, if I were me, this is what I would want. It was on point, right? Again, so building from, everyone's got their own, cup of tea, their own perspective, their own influence, what they like. And then the next thing is just understanding when those situations happen and figuring out a way for the other person to at least respect your perspective, and then figure out what they would want as well. So that being said, then the last part, so it went well. Workshop was great. We're going to do a couple more. We're going to keep building that out because I think it works out really well. It's a lot of fucking work. Okay, so it's not like I didn't anticipate work. I just didn't anticipate as much when you're building, right? Like when you're building, the building phase is a lot. So that's another aha moment I had was, whenever you're building, and it just makes total sense, there's going to be a lot more work up front, and there's going to be somewhat of a curve. And that curve is, the knowledge you don't know. So I think it's important, again, and people have said it, coaching, mentors, et cetera, you just got to know who's the right one. Are they providing the right value, et cetera, et cetera. But again, I think that was a big like aha moment. I'm like, man, no, it'll be fine. We're going to do this. And like macro level, I'm very good at vision, right? Like I have a good visionary skill where I can understand the macro levels and then start breaking down the micros. But then again, when I'm the one doing the micros, then I'm like, fuck, that's a lot of micros and a lot of work. So I anticipated the work. I just didn't anticipate how much work, but it worked out well. It was successful. Everybody loved it. Shout out to the students that came, because, now their content is next level. I have a couple students, just like anybody in a group, there's going to be people that are going to continue to work on it. There's going to be people that like went and they tried it and they're like, probably not for me. I just need to hire somebody, or I just need to just keep doing what I'm doing. And then 3, like you got those people that excel. So like, I've seen it all, I've seen it all, and I'm happy that people are continuing to keep their momentum. So that's the other thing. Keep momentum, keep going. Now, work, right? So back to the amount of work, which then the next thought was the amount of, like, if there's something that you want, or if there's something that you want to feel and do, whether it's a relationship or a physical activity or work or be successful in XYZ, there's always going to be in this curve or this ebb and flow of life or ebb and flow of whatever particular situation, moments where you have to put in additional work to get back to that feeling. And I realized that like it's okay and not to be panicked and not to be so overwhelmed and not to be freaking out, man, like when those situations occur, and just understand that that is a situation that you then have to put in the additional work to then benefit from it, right? And then from there, the PDMI, plan, do, measure, improve, PDMI, plan, do, measure, improve. So once you do, then you have to go back, reflect, and then figure out what can I do better. So that's what we're doing with the workshops and everything else that we're going on. So that being said, my last point, how we started the episode and how we'll finish it, was the moments that sometimes you do feel overwhelmed. And like I experienced this a few days ago, or maybe I'm not sure if it was before or after the workshop, but I needed to sit and like, I think it was after the workshop. Yeah, it was after the workshop. I think it was Thursday. So the workshop was on a Tuesday, crushed it, like prepared Monday, all weekend, Monday, and workshop on Tuesday. Wednesday was somewhat of an off day, not really off because we had work and we had a bunch of things to like follow up with things, right? Because like the systems are being created. It's not like they've been in place, right? This was our first workshop in a while. So Wednesday was still something like that, catching up, doing a little bit of work. Thursday, B&I, lots of energy, lots of people, like a lot of output. And then that time when I got back, I was like, I need to there was just so much going on in my brain that it was just like I felt like it was in overdrive. Like I didn't have control of the thoughts coming in and going out. And so I physically had to tell myself, like, I need to go. So I think I took a shower. I went outside. I don't think I jumped in the ice bath because it was like it needed to be cleaned. So I didn't jump in the ice bath, which in that moment, it would have been ideal if I would have jumped in the ice bath, took a shower, and then went and sat. But I think I took a shower, cold shower, and then got comfy clothes, sat on the couch in our room, and decided to just take, I put, I think 15 or 20 minutes on the clock, or 30 minutes, and then just sat without my phone. And it's so hard. When I first got this phone, I was like, all right, I'm just going to use it for calls and things that I need. But now I realize it's fucking glued to my hand for most of the time, or like around me. It's around me, right? It's not like super glued, like, TikTok and Snapchat glued, but it's definitely around my vicinity a lot more. And if I'm walking to one place and I'm done on the computer, I typically look on the phone for some reason. It's just like, I'm trained to do that. So I need to work on detraining myself on that side note. But I sat for 30 minutes and I let myself just sit. And it's hard because like, it's not like I sat and I was like, okay, I was in total meditation. I sat and then thoughts kept coming. And so I allowed the thoughts to come. I allowed them to just sort of work themselves out. And then a next thought, and then a next thought. And then I realized that like, while being conscious of my breaths, like taking long, deep breaths, slowing down, letting the thoughts come, giving it time, thinking about it, and then like on to the next one. The intensity of these thoughts and like the frequency of how they started to slow down and slow down and slow down until I got to a point where I was like, I was able to breathe. And then from there, I was like, okay, cool. So here's what I need to do for the next day or two, or XYZ or XYZ. And I just knew that day I was like shot. So after that, I did a little bit of something, and then I think I took like a 2-hour nap. I needed it, right? I needed it. I know some people don't take naps. I used to take, I don't know if I used to take naps every day, but I'm a nap fan if you need it, right? If you need it. Because I think they say like 30 minutes no longer than like an hour. And if you get a good sleep in or get 30 minutes or good nap in, your body's ready to go for like, another XYZ. So I did that, woke up, worked for a couple hours, crushed it, and then, back to Friday. So that's what happened. I encourage you, if you are dealing with something similar or you catch yourself in these moments where you feel really super fucking overwhelmed, I would encourage you to really be conscious about it. And listen, what's 30 fucking minutes out of your day? Not a lot. You can sit there, and just fucking give yourself time to breathe, time to relax, and get to the next level. Because what happens like in a pressure cooker, if you have all this, the thing goes, right? And it blows up. You don't want to blow up. you just, you want to be around for a while. So I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you sharing. I know I've gotten texts and messages that you're sending it to people, your kids, your grandchildren, your spouse, wife, friends, coworkers. Like, I appreciate the fact that some of these things that we talk about are relevant to you, hopefully helping you. And just remember, it's just a reminder, right? It's like taking your vitamins, your supplements, you drinking water in the morning, and love your body. That's the last thing I'm going to say. Like, I've become conscious of actually loving the physical vehicle that drives you around in this fucking world that we live in. All right, I'll leave you guys with that. Keep crushing it. Don't forget, nothing changes until you do. Peace.